G'day guys, welcome back to a new episode of the Boundary Riders podcast, episode 153, I'm pretty sure, 90% sure. We have a lot to talk about today with Gather Round, of course, fast approaching, a little bit of a preview to that. We're going to be taking a look at Chris Scott's latest comments regarding Gather Round, our fan favourite Rate It or Hate It segment, preview to the new round, fantasy recap, and much, much more. So let's roll the intro and get straight into it.
Welcome to the Boundary Riders podcast, your one-stop shop for all your AFL content needs.
He looks at his options, and Jack Ginnivan says, boys, you brought me to the club to do just this!
But this guy has flog written all over him.
From a tap down, Reed sprints away from Petrarca, leaves him in his wake, takes a second bounce, takes a third. The sheer arrogance of Harley Reid. Finish the job, young man!
So let's get into the footy news from the week that was.
So guys, of course, my co-host for the podcast, Jack, is with me, and I did see the eye roll when we started the preview. He doesn't even know what episode it is, but he's more than happy to roll his eyes at me. The buzz is in the air around SA, I'd say, with Gather Round, tomorrow today, as you guys are watching.
Yeah, so it's always a great time of the year, I think, in SA, and, you know, it brings the big buzz of AFL to the footy state, really.
Or you're going to call us the footy state, are you?
Well, for the week we are.
We are for the week. Yeah, I mean, I think we've already got a lot of things going up already for the round. It is supposed to, at the moment, it's technically our last Gather Round before the AFL make an announcement, but I'm pretty sure that Gather Round will stay here.
I think there'll be, I think the good thing is that, even the outside Victorian media know that SA is the spot for it.
And they're pushing it, which makes it a lot better.
Pushing it. Like, they're saying that Tassie will get it when they get their stadium and shit, but, you know.
Where else are they going? I mean, yes, they got...
You got
the big stadium, and then you'll have two little stadiums, but you don't have the population. It's going to struggle to get traction for people to go down there. So I think it works best in SA, but that's... I think I've heard stories regarding the Premier of South Australia, Peter Malinowskis, saying that he wants to make it a long-term thing, 10, 20 odd years or something, which probably seems a bit far, but I mean, when you think about it, the AFL have made deals with the MCG to play the grand final there for 50 more years or whatever, so It's not like that would be out of the question, but I just think it is a good spot where it is in SA. SA have grown it, year on year, and I think they've probably done it as good as anyone could.
Yeah, exactly. And as most people say, it's in a perfect spot in Australia,
SA has a lot of places so close to each other. The population is it's very centralised to the centre of, Adelaide, obviously, a lot of population, but it's not a lot of travel time to go to games or go to grounds. Yes, the game at the Barossa is over an hour away, but it's not as in WA, there'd be places you'd have to travel 2 or 3 hours just to go to a different ground. I think Bunbury would be a pretty fair distance away.
I think,
That's where I'm thinking, that's where a lot of people are suggesting where the 20th team would be. So maybe in the future it would move to WA if they were to get a 20th team. But I think at this stage, with Tassie coming in, I don't think there's a reason to move it down there. I think it's in a good spot where it is in SA.
Yeah.
That one thing before we move on from Gather Round, probably one thing that, especially if you are in South Australia right now, something that probably should be promoted a whole lot more. Obviously, with petrol prices and stuff going, skyrocketing, as we all know. This isn't a sponsorship, by the way. I wish it was. Fucking, that'd be a nice little pay slip right now. But at the moment, you can get 10 cents off every litre of petrol at Shell, Ready Expresses, I think they're called. So make sure if you are going to use that, I think it's only in SA, but if you do use it, you can download the AFL app. I'm sure everyone who's listening to this has the AFL app. You click on the banner with the Shell one and you can sign up and all that sort of stuff, and then you get a 10-cent discount on your petrol for every single litre. Have to use a Shell Ready Express depot. You cannot go to a Shell that's OTR or Shell that's anything else. It has to be a Ready one. Girlfriend used it today and just got absolutely trounced at the Bowser for $80 odd because she filled it up I'm going to get 10 cents off, and then just fucking at the counter you go, oh, here you go, and they're like, oh no, sorry, we don't do it here. It's like, oh great, well, you going to take the petrol out, or am I just going to fucking get fucked here?
Yeah.
So if you are going to do that, I think it's a really good initiative that they've done just for Gather Round this week. 10 cents off a litre, but just make sure you go to the right sort of servo. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move to our first story I want to take a look at. We'll take a look at some news throughout the last couple of days. First of all, it looks like opening round may be very well changed due to a lot of ground. The way the season's going to start with different stadium availability at the start of the season, with gather round potentially off the cards. So I think what has that got to do with exactly? Is that
the opening round? It was due to the centenary test match against obviously Australia v England is in the last. I think it's the last weekend of March.
Yeah. Over
that weekend, and obviously that will be the first weekend normally that is. I think that's when round 1 normally is held.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously the AFL can't have the game there. They can't have games around MCG with that going on. So likely means that I would assume that they're going to probably either move opening round, which I really don't like the idea of, like move it to a split round somewhere, or they just start the season with everyone playing everyone, and then maybe.
I think they're going to do is, they'll start the season later, and then the grand final will be later. They might, scrap the pre-finals bye or something like that. I don't know what they're going to do.
I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea. I mean, obviously it'd be a bit earlier on in the season, and they do it more for school holidays and stuff. But I mean, it would make some sort of sense to move up gather round, to that sort of period, because everyone could just go to SA that week. But I mean, again, they probably don't want. I'm sure the MCC and the Cricket Association wouldn't want that, because that would take supporters away from the centennial game, the test match. So I think you're probably right. They'll just delay the season a little bit. Maybe there won't be as many hamstring issues. Who the fuck knows? But that's been a huge issue over the start of this season. Got a bunch of injuries over the weekend as well. Ed Richards for the Dogs is out. Tim English, oh my god, fucking MCL injury.
Fucked my fantasy.
Yeah, we'll get to that
to
later.
No ever.
We've seen other players go down. It's just getting worse, and I think it probably does make a decent point about how the teams are struggling. Well, players are struggling to not get injured because they haven't trained enough.
Yeah, and I think the new rules have actually exposed these injuries. I reckon these new rules and new game style that teams are implementing this year.
It's all about speed at the moment,
and it's showing the slower teams that, and maybe not unfit players, but the ones that don't have the explosiveness that some other players do have.
Well, did you see with Tom? I don't know if you saw this. Tom Mitchell made a comment on a recent podcast saying that he had he's not really pointing out any sort of player in particular, but he was bringing up the point of I could still be playing football. He said that I could be still playing football. Considering I understand that he understood that the game is moving a lot more to fast-paced football, further away from that grunt stoppage midfielder. But he was bringing up a decent point, saying that a lot of players now just can't simply hit a handball. I mean, obviously he was talking about Ben Mackay, but
or the entire Carlton team. But all right,
yeah, I mean they've got more problems than just the handballing. Which we'll talk about one other issue they're going to be doing at the start. They could be making a team change this week, which seems absolutely outrageous. They're going to make this change, but let's just talk about it now. Apparently, Carlton could be dropping George Hewitt. He won the best and fairest for Carlton last year. He's 4 rounds in, had most disposals and most tackles last week for the Blues.
So you're telling me he showed the most pressure and he had the ball the most out of any player in that team. So
let's drop him.
Let's drop him and keep people like
I mean, even Patrick Cripps,
Adam Chera in the team.
Yeah, Adam Chera in the team. They already dropped Blake Acres, but he's not in the team right now. You're looking at a couple of their recruits. No offense to Ollie Florent, but he hasn't had a great start for the Blues. Will Hayward's obviously suspended this week, but I think that was a bit tough. But I mean, I get why he got it. Will Hayward as well. He hasn't had a great start for the Blues. Ben Ainsworth's probably been their best, out of the recruits, but he hasn't done exactly that. He hasn't done amazing. It's just very interesting that's the trigger they're going to pull here. I don't think the issue is necessarily. I don't necessarily think it's massively on personnel. I think it's just on mindset. Because Carlton are winning quarters of football. They're winning first halves and that sort of stuff. They were in front for the first 3 quarters against North Melbourne last week. But it's their mindset of just falling away.
Yeah, it's I don't know what's the word. The mentality of
the fragile mental side of the game that Carlton have. I don't necessarily think it's a personnel sort of issue. Like, I don't... No, by no means do I think that they have a great list either. But I think that dropping George Hewitt, what are they going to do? Pick up someone from the VFL who's doing marginally maybe better than like a couple of the Blues players?
I think they were saying that with Chera coming back, that Jagger Smith was playing more of a half-forward role last week. Maybe they chuck him back in the midfield, but you just had the swap right there. You've had Jagger Smith in that midfield with Adam Chera out. Why? And Adam Chera does bugger all in that team.
Yeah.
So why would you take out the reigning best and fairest, the one who had the most pressure, acts in tackles wise, and drop him?
Yeah. I think there's more levers you can pull here to make a difference.
To be honest, and the fact is that Chera always pulls his hammy, so that's what he's going to do this week anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they'll bring him back in for George Hewitt. But also the fact is that, probably with Chera being on so much money, I don't know how much he's on now, but the money that he's got, that's why they're playing him.
Yeah, I think that's probably got to be a factor. I mean, when you think about like George Hewitt, he's a very good player for them and one of best and fairest. But I'd still think that Adam Chera would be on more money considering the contracts that they both got. Like George Hewitt came from the Swans, I think, as a free agent. I'm pretty sure. While Chera came over for a huge deal from Fremantle, he'd definitely be on more money, which probably does come up in a lot of like facets in selection, I would say. I doubt that they'd drop a player of his caliber straight away. Like, I mean, when you think about it, they're playing Nick Haynes in the reserves, and he was one of the highest paid players a few years ago for the Giants. He probably comes in this week, I would say, because of Jacob Wiedering's concussion and Harry Dean, of course, being out from a couple of weeks. But I mean, they haven't got a lot to pick from that VFL side either.
No.
I mean, you think they got a chance to pick up Cooper Hamilton as an SSP, yeah? They just got unlucky and missed out on him, but he could have literally been playing for the Blues right now.
And I think it'd be showing a bit more pressure than what their forward line is at the moment, I reckon.
Well, I mean, pressure's not that big of an issue at Carlton. I mean, I feel like the pressure on Michael Voss is that much that he's like, I'm trying to relieve the pressure, so I'm going to take out my best pressure player from the team. That's going to relieve some sort of pressure. I don't know what he's thinking, but
he might be near the end. He might feel like
let's just fucking send
some people right back to the.
Well, there is talk about like the potential of draft picks being the draft may be a little bit different this year, and it may hamper teams like Carlton and Port Adelaide because of their high prospects in their academies and whatever it may be, like father-son picks. So not that I'm suggesting Carlton are tanking by any means, but I mean, maybe. I mean, if I call it now, tanking an 8th of April that they're starting to tank, that would be exciting.
Well,
that'd be a great call from it.
You look at it; they should be 0-4.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the fact is Tom Lynch couldn't see the goals that night.
Yeah,
they've lost every second half.
Yeah,
tanking maybe.
Maybe I'm not saying it, but there's something there. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Carlton do from here. Like, I mean, not that we can really reveal we were going to reveal this tip anyway. I can't see a way where they can beat the Crows.
The weather actually might help them. It is supposed to be pissing down rain on Thursday night, or when it's really cold, and their contested game will be one of the best.
Yeah,
so it could be their game. So
the thing is, the Crows are also under pressure here.
Yes,
they haven't had a good start to the season either.
No. But
I feel like there has been a couple of like whispers about how the Crows are like under a lot of pressure and all that sort of stuff, but it's usually just like, oh, whatever, shut up, because they're going to win anyway.
They're playing Carlton, they're going to win. Yeah.
So if they do lose, which I don't think they will, there will be a huge amount of pressure on
that's when the pressure will come for him. But yeah, like you said, I don't see how Carlton win. I really don't. They've and especially after dropping your reigning best and fairest player, kind of shows it's not really a statement. It's more of a what are you doing moment. That's not dropping.
I mean, a statement from me, and I know this is like he's a big player. Harry Mackay getting dropped would be one, and I mean it's also not really on him though. No, I think dropping an Ollie Florent or someone like that because he's your recruit, or Adam Chera, I think would be more of a statement. Dropping George Hewitt, I don't think is the right option. at all, because I think he's he's one of the best defensive, like, two-way runners in the midfield, and he probably was one of the best two-way runners last year.
Yeah, it's the fact is that yes, he's one of your leaders, but he's also plays that he's sort of a role player. He wins your best and fairest, and yes, he does, but he always has the hard acts.
Yeah,
He'll do the hard jobs. He'll do all that. Dropping him when you're playing against the Crows this week at home in a hostile environment, you kind of need that player in your team. You don't need a Chera who gets you 20 disposals and does nothing with it. He gets you 20 disposals and plays the Tom Mitchell role, but gets 20 disposals doing it.
Yeah, at least with Tom Mitchell, I think he gets 40, and he's at least extracting it out of there. Adam Chera, if I was picking a team right now and I had to pick between them two, George Hewitt's definitely joining my team.
Yes.
If you're in the schoolyard, you're picking out of them two. You're picking George Hewitt. I would. Anyway, I feel like that's not really the statement that the Blues need to make right now. But anyway, talking about the Blues in a little bit more of an aspect, Fox Footy brought up this very interesting statistic about an AFL's Division 2, but basing it on a couple of teams that have done. So they've said all these Division 2 sides versus the rest of the AFL this weekend, an average margin of 62 points when they've played against teams above them. I'm pretty sure.
This is great. Yeah.
So there are a few they've written in this post. There are always a few bad teams, but these 6 are a long way off the rest of the AFL. Every win they've recorded this season came against each other. So. And all six play Division 1 teams this weekend. So they've written the teams here: North Melbourne, Carlton, Port Adelaide, West Coast, Essendon, and Richmond. So all these teams have got their wins against a Division 2 or the bottom sides of the competition. North Melbourne have got all 3 of their wins against these teams. They're 3-1 right now. Carlton are 1-3, of course, after losing to Richmond. Port Adelaide are 2-2. West Coast are 2-2. But you look at the difference between percentage of Port Adelaide and West Coast. Port Adelaide's is 117, and the West Coast is 64. So obviously, West Coast crashed back to earth against the Swans.
Oh, yes.
There was a bit of a thought, like, maybe West Coast could do it. They couldn't do it.
They were punched in the mouth in the first quarter with an Isaac Heaney masterclass.
Yeah, Isaac Heaney just took them all to. He said, "Boys, these guys, they beat Port Adelaide. Who cares? Who cares? I know I'm saying that next year.
They beat
Who
North Melbourne.
cares?
They beat North Melbourne.
They beat North Melbourne. Who cares, boys? We are the Sydney Swans. Just bang right in the mouth. They put Harley Reid, just put him in a dog cage. They said, "No, you're staying there. You're getting James Jordan today, and you're gone." And then they didn't really have another answer.
No.
To be fair, the West Coast didn't really do much to protect him. But I also think he was also very poor
because his protector is Elliot Yeo when he was out as well, which didn't help. But
I also think that West Coast, they've never really had to deal with a Harley Reid tag before, so they probably didn't. Players don't get tagged against the West Coast Eagles very often.
No,
so they probably were a bit surprised by that.
So what your 120 point win could have been about about 60 point win if you didn't tag him.
Oh, I don't think Harley Reid's worth 10 goals, but
do you think he's worth the 24? The 20 goals that you won by? Do you think you're not tagging him?
I think that
you still would have won by about 80, 85,
probably.
90?
I mean, maybe 90. I still would think it would have been around close to that 100 mark. They weren't that good. I do think that they had some signs, but the problem was when Sydney moved the ball, West Coast weren't able to stop them.
Probably the worst thing about, yes, you're losing by 120, but you're doing it at home.
Yeah.
And
they just came off 2 big wins.
Yeah, and the two wins were, the one away from against Port Adelaide. No one expected them to do that, especially with the time difference. The fact is, it was 9 o'clock their time they did it, or 9:30, 10 o'clock. And the fact is that you go home and all your fans go there, and that's the performance you throw up. It's I know it's against a team that's supposed to be up there at the end of the year, but not 120 point loss. They didn't do that last year. Yeah. They didn't lose by 100 points last year.
You think of West Coast and you're like, as a West Coast fan, you're probably excited. You're like, oh my God, maybe we're fighting our way back. We're not ready yet for finals, but we can compete against these teams. Imagine all the kids that are probably haven't, those 7 or 8 year olds who probably haven't seen the best of West Coast in a long time. They come up and they see their heroes and they just get fucking slaughtered. Harley Reid's doing stupid acts and doing all this sort of stuff, and you're like, fucking hell, this is just like last year. It's just, they're brought right back to earth. So, I mean, I think it probably warrants that they're in this division right now, this sort of core. But there definitely is a top echelon of teams and a bottom echelon of teams. Melbourne probably would have been here, but they've had a brilliant start to the season.
Yeah,
I mean, no one expected this.
The 2 wins they got were not teams that they would have expected to ever beat this year.
Yeah.
Really. Like,
No.
even St Kilda in the first week, like, they weren't expected to win that. And they just played their fun, exciting football. And then last week against Gold Coast, no one expected that one. Like, you know, to do that in a way, they did it convincingly. I know they only won by 20 points, but, you know, 20-point win, kicking over 100 points against Gold Coast, who have a decent defense. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, and now they're going up against the Bombers at Adelaide Oval.
And the Bombers
should be played at Norwood, but fucking whatever.
Yeah, and the Bombers are coming off probably their best result this season, and they still got flogged by 7 goals.
Yeah, against the Dogs, who probably were in second.
He took off about second or third gear at the end of the second half.
Yeah, I mean, you probably could make an argument that maybe St Kilda could probably be down here. I know I know it's a bit different, and I know why they're trying to base it on. But if you had a top division of like at 9-10 teams, and then 8 to 10 teams in this bottom division, St Kilda probably would be down there right now. They're playing, and Melbourne probably are fighting for a top division. If they were to break it down this way, you probably would say that they're a lot closer to the top half Melbourne than St Kilda are.
Yeah, because the St Kilda only win against was the Giants, and it wasn't convincing.
Yeah,
and
we've seen how poor the Giants have been the first couple of weeks, like after opening round.
Yeah, exactly. So, be
very interesting this week if one of these teams can actually break through and cause a bit of an upset. I think Port Adelaide, I think are probably the most likely. Maybe Richmond, but I can't see Essendon beating Melbourne. I can't see West Coast beating Geelong. Carlton, I can't see beating Port Adelaide. North Melbourne, bit of an interesting one against Brisbane because it's in the Barossa. But
yeah, and the fact is that North Melbourne have had the wood over them in the last couple years. They had the draw a couple of years ago. I think it was last year down in Tassie, and they've been playing there against Brisbane in Tasmania for a couple of years. So coming to the Barossa. It's a neutral ground. It could be interesting, but the fact is, I think Harris Andrews, Hugh McCluggage are both back in this week, so probably not the best time to come against the reigning champs.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't want to play against them at that point. And also, they've got Finn O'Sullivan's out as well, so no tagger.
So Dane Zorko, Will Ashcroft will have field day.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have a 30 touches game. So throughout the week as well, Chris Scott came out with some scolding words regarding wildcard weekend.
What the truth?
He said, so he came out and said, quote for quote, it feels like we're shifting to games. Oh, sorry, this is what Jimmy Bartel said regarding it. He said that it feels like we're shifting to games that are just becoming more content with no meaning for them, which, I mean, I tend to agree. And this is what Chris Scott had to say on AFL 360.
See, this is why I shouldn't do this. It's so close to the game. I speak my mind, which is good for you and bad for me generally. I mean, I tend to think they just made it up. But
made up, get around. Made up
just threw in a couple more finals for no good reason except cash, probably.
I mean, obviously.
That's 100% the reason they did it.
Obviously, they did it for money. And I mean, I think, to be fair, it's probably, I understand why they did it. Like, honestly, the thing is that it's going to be a success. They can't take it away now. Like, it's going to be a rating success. Everyone's going to be talking about it. And the thing is, it makes the more interest in the season as it goes on, because teams like 9th and 10th have an opportunity to, if you're fighting for more spots for, potential final spots. The thing is, it's going to work. Is it right? Probably not. I don't think it probably is.
It gives more teams. It gives
more mediocre teams a chance.
More mediocre teams, more than half the competition a chance to make these finals.
So I probably think this has got to do with eventually the AFL move to 20 teams, and that's why it's giving half and half. Do you think when we move to a 20-team competition, it's going to be more fair? I think it
will. I think it will by that stage, and then because then probably would have come in by that stage as well. So.
Sorry, what was that?
So it would have come in if it wasn't now, it would have come in when that 20th team comes in.
Because, you kind of think about it like 10 and 10. How would they really divide the finals? I'm not really 100% sure. So I'm guessing they probably wanted to bring it in now for us to get used to it. So then when Tasmania come in, then at least we have 19, and then we move into the 20th, and then we are set. They're like, oh, okay, so this is why it's here. That's why I kind of think they did it, and it makes a lot of sense as to why. Like, we kind of know now. I think actually when doing research for a new video, Andrew Dillon said that we're going to be moving to 20 teams. He's already said
he
that.
said that multiple times.
So we're moving to 20 teams. He doesn't know when. I think Tassie, they'll try. It will be a little bit more of a. It will obviously be more of a gap than the Gold Coast and the Giants. I'm probably expecting maybe early to mid 2030s, probably before we move to that 20th team. But yeah, I mean, it's going to come. We're not going to stay.
Yeah, the AFL will not allow it to be 19 for 10 years. Yeah. They'll get a team in before 2035.
Yeah,
they'll get the 20th team in there.
Yeah. So Andrew Dillon was quizzed about this today regarding Chris Scott's comments, and he said that it kind of was like he was like got informed by Chris Scott that he can speak for himself, but he sort of said it. There was an ill-advised attempt of humour which didn't quite land the way that he wanted. I mean, I don't think that's how it came off. To me, it kind of felt like he was saying that it's a cash grab, and it is. And I mean, I understand that Andrew Dillon's not going to exactly come out and just say this is for cash, but let's call a spade a spade. That's what wildcard round is.
Yeah, and as you just said, everyone doesn't like it, but let's be honest. If your team's there on that day, finishes 8th or 9th, you're going to go to the game. If it's Adelaide, you're going to go to the game at Adelaide Oval. You're going to do it, and the AFL know that. So yes, it's a cash grab, but yes, it will work.
Yeah,
they're not stupid. They know what's going to happen.
And with Jimmy Bartell's comments regarding like it's more content now. I mean, it kind of is. Like the AFL was bought up by DAZN or something that owns KO, and they're one of like a big American sports streaming service. So they know that like AFL is exclusive to Australia. Let's be real. It's not like there are other places, and it's good that they want to start growing it, like with places like India and that sort of stuff. That's great. That's not going to happen overnight. No. And the way that it's going to get more exciting, and the only way it's going to get like more money and more exposure is to come up with new initiatives like this. And unfortunately, maybe it's going to take a dent at the fabric of the game, which I don't like. I don't really like wildcard round. If I was going to bring it in, like the only way I would accept it at all is if it was just 8th and 9th. I think 7th and 10th position should have no right being anywhere near finals. No. So, especially when we're in an 18-team competition. Maybe when we move to 20, fair enough. At least it's half and half. But right now, we're literally going into the second half of the ladder to pick a team maybe who can make finals. Like, I don't think... I can't see a world where 10th can go all the way. But we saw 7th do it with the Bulldogs. And if someone from 10th beats 7th, they get momentum, they should have no right to be in that race. But again, I mean, if 10th is able to do it, then...
In my lifetime, the max amount of times it will happen is once. In my lifetime, the max amount of times that a team from 10th will win the whole thing will be once.
Technically, we've never seen a team from 8th do it. So for 10th to do it would be crazy.
Yeah.
So
I've got more faith in a team from 8th doing it than fucking someone from 10.
Yeah.
But like I said, in my lifetime, it'll happen once max.
Yeah.
From 10th.
I would agree with you. But the thing is as well, though, it brings more excitement, it brings more exposure, it brings more eyeballs to the game, and it gives games like last year, like, yes, it was a bit of an outlier last year's season, because there was 9 teams that were there, and there were 9 teams that were just nowhere near it. Like, the Swans were the closest, and they were 10th for, like, the last third of the season. Yeah. And they were fighting for that 9th spot. Like, the Swans were around it, but it was out of the Bulldogs, and what was the other team? I think it was the Giants or Hawthorn. Giants, Hawthorn, and Fremantle, were those ones that were fighting for that 8th spot, and the Dogs just missed out. But most of the time, there is a chance that maybe 10th could jump in there. 11th is an opportunity. Yeah. Maybe, like with 2 rounds to go. So it does bring more of an idea, like, we could still make finals. Like, we're in 11th right now. We're gonna need 2 wins to get back, and maybe we're in a chance. So it's gonna work. It's not the right thing probably for the fabric of the game, and it does reward mediocrity in my eyes. But eventually, when we move to 20 teams, it probably makes sense. Yeah, that's kind of how I see it anyway. So guys, now let's move to the preview to Gather Round, of course, coming up this weekend. If you're here in SA, it's a great time to be around. If it's your first Gather Round, of course, make sure you let us know as well. Hopefully it stays here in SA as fellow South Australians, but we'll have to wait and see probably till next week to find out if that is true. But let's get into the preview to the new round.
And first, we're going to be starting with the game to start it all on Gather Round, which is Adelaide up against Carlton. Now, the Crows have lost their last 3 games, and many questions have been asked around their game style being too boring and too slow, while Carlton have had a terrible start to the season. Honestly, should be without a win, even though they got that one against the Tigers in round 1. And absolutely everything has been questioned at the Blues, from the list to the coach. It's been an absolutely horrendous start for Carlton. Now, on Adelaide, they have lost both of their games at Adelaide Oval this season, which is pretty unheard of for the Crows, as they usually make Adelaide Oval an absolute fortress. So very unfortunate for them. They have had 2 pretty good teams at Adelaide Oval so far, and they don't really have the best record in Gather Round either, with only 1 win, which was against Carlton. But on the Blues' point of view, they've actually never beaten the Crows at Adelaide Oval, and they haven't defeated Adelaide in South Australia since 2010. So not a great record there for the Blues. Now, the Crows should see the return of Rory Laird this week, and Mitch Hinge did play his first game in the Sandful last week, so we could see the return of him as well, while the Blues will be sweating on Will Hayward's suspension. Now, I'm recording this on Monday morning, so I'll expect that the Blues will challenge that one, but he could be a massive out for Carlton. But now let's get to my tip for this one, and I think it's pretty simple here. I have to go Adelaide. I think they will get their first win at Adelaide Oval for the year. Carlton are just in all sorts right now, and I think the Crows have been in most games so far this year. They've just got a little bit unlucky at the end of them, just haven't been able to get over the line and fight their way back. I think I'm expecting a big win from the Crows to get their season right back on track. So big win for Adelaide. After that, we move to Friday night in Gather Round, which is the Pies up against Fremantle. A real big encounter, this one. These two have played in some really big blockbusters over the last few years. We had a nail-biting win for the Dockers last year at the MCG with Patrick Voss kicking 6 goals. And only a year prior to that, we actually saw a draw between both these teams when Collingwood led all night at Optus Stadium, and the Dockers fought their way back in the final term to get a draw out of that one. Now, Collingwood have won 2 games so far this season against GWS and St Kilda, while they did lose to the Crows and Brisbane. Up against another contender in Fremantle, they'll need to kick a big score to be able to win this one. While on the Dockers' point of view, they've had a really good start to the campaign. 3 big wins in a row against the Crows last week at Adelaide Oval, the Tigers and Melbourne, but they did have a bad loss against Geelong in the first round. But the takeaway from that was they had a brilliant start to that game, and then eventually just fell off against Geelong, but still kicked over 100 points. Now, on Collingwood's point of view, they should hopefully see the return of Scott Pendlebury this week, and Nick Dacos, after being a late out against the Lions, they're expecting that he will be back this week for the Pies. While on Fremantle's point of view, we may see the return of Hayden Young, although I wouldn't be surprised if they give him off an extra week for Gather Round to come to Adelaide and maybe bring him back for the next game back in Perth. But now moving to my tip, and despite Collingwood have a pretty decent record at the Adelaide Oval, I'm going to be going with Fremantle. Now, the Dockers have scored over 100 points in 3 of their first 4 games to start this year, and Collingwood have actually not got over 90 points to start this campaign. So I can't see a way where Collingwood can stop all the firepower that the Dockers have up forward. And I honestly think the Dockers should be good enough to win this one. After that, we move to Saturday afternoon. The Swans up against the Gold Coast at Norwood Oval. Now, the Swans are coming off an absolutely massive win against the Eagles last week. While on the Gold Coast point of view, they've had a massive start to the season. Were undefeated before last week's shocker against the Demons at the MCG. Brought right back to earth there, and are currently 3-1 with the Swans. Now, this game, of course, is played at Norwood Oval. A very skinny ground. If you don't know, the sides of this ground, the boundary lines go completely straight on the wing. Probably similar to Skilled Stadium or GMHBA Stadium down in Geelong. That does mean there'll be a lot of ball through the corridor. A lot easier for teams to kick goals if they're able to get through the congestion. Now, the Swans have never actually played at Norwood Oval, while the Gold Coast have only played there once. Now, the Swans could see the return of Malcolm Roses, who was a late out last week. Another change I could see in my eyes is Tolly, who played really well in the reserves last week, which could make way for Corey Warner, who hasn't done that good in the first couple of weeks for him. Now, on the Suns' point of view, we did see the return of Matt Rao last week, so getting some valuable minutes under his belt. And we also could see the return of Christian Petrarca with his hamstring injury. On the injury list, it is written that he is 1 to 3 weeks out from last week's game, so could see the return of him as well. But now we're moving into my tip for this one, and I honestly think this is a 50-50 game. With the unknown of playing at Norwood Oval, it's a bit tough, but I am going to go with the Swans. I think Norwood Oval, being quite a skinny ground, will play a lot more in the Swans' favour. We've seen that they love to play the ball through the middle of the ground to start the season, which is why I think Justin McInerney's a big watch for your game day squads this week. So I think the Swans will really like that. However, With the Gold Coast coming off a really bad loss against the Demons last week, with Dimmer Hardwick calling out a lot of his players for their efforts, I wouldn't be too surprised if the Suns come out red hot and can definitely win this one. Huge 50-50 game. Could be a game of the round. Absolute shocker from the AFL that they're playing this one at Norwood. But nonetheless, let's move to the next game, which is Saturday night. Two top teams going up against each other. Hawthorn up against the Dogs. Now, Hawthorn last week won probably the game of the year so far against Geelong. It was honestly a finals-like atmosphere at the MCG on Easter Monday, and the way they were able to just galvanise themselves in that final quarter to win that game was outstanding. So Hawthorn coming off a big win, while the Dogs, on the other hand, are the only team in the competition now who are undefeated. Now, they did have a pretty scrappy performance against the Bombers last week, who played pretty well considering how they've done so far this year, Essendon, but overall the Dogs got a win that they needed, and now they sit atop the AFL ladder. But the two concerns that I have going into this game on Hawthorn's point of view is the fact they're coming off a 5-day break, and after a finals-like matchup, it's going to be tough for them to back that up and gather around. While on the Dogs' point of view, they have some massive injury concerns. Artie Jones looks like he's going to miss the next 2 to 4 weeks with a hamstring. Ed Richards is all but certain to be out against the Hawks, and Tim English has suffered an MCL injury from his last matchup, so he is expected to be on the sidelines for an extended period. So a big 3 losses there for the Dogs. Now, also a bit of a concern on the injury front is Jack Gunston. He did play out the game against the Cats last week, but I would be surprised if he's going to be able to play once again with a hamstring issue after a 5-day break, so I wouldn't be too surprised if Hawthorn decide to rest him. But now getting to my tip, and with the 5-day break for the Hawks, I'm just going to have to go with the Dogs here. I've had a good win at Adelaide Oval just a few weeks ago against the Crows, so that also plays into their favour. Just can't see a way where Hawthorn could stop all the avenues in the middle of the ground for the Dogs, and in the end I think they're just going to be too strong, be able to fight it out for the whole 4 quarters, and a 5-day break for Hawthorn is going to be tough for them to back that up. And now let's get to the final game that we're going to be taking a look at. It is the final game of Gather Around to close off the weekend, which is Port Adelaide up against St Kilda. Now, the Power have had one of the easiest draws to start the season. However, haven't really got the results that they've wanted, being 2-2, while St Kilda are coming off the bye and are being one of the most disappointing teams to start this season after the huge spending spree from the off-season. Now, both teams desperately need a win. However, I think the Saints need it more. To be fair on St Kilda, they've had a tougher draw than Port Adelaide, with having games against the likes of the Brisbane Lions and Collingwood. But if they are going to be pushing for a wildcard spot this year, the Saints, they're going to have to start putting wins on the board. On Port Adelaide's point of view as well, they've had an awesome record in Gather Round with no losses in the first 3 installments of Gather Round. So Port Adelaide like to go big in this match, so I'm going to be watching them this week. But now moving to my tip, this is a really tough one. However, I'm going to be going with the home team in the Power. Not much confidence on this one, but with this game being at Adelaide Oval and the Saints losing their defensive identity, I believe the Power will do enough to be able to get a winning score here. But again, it's a very tentative one to watch because I think St Kilda could very well win this one. They did beat Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval last year, so they don't have the worst record in recent times, the Saints, but don't really play well at Adelaide. But now let's move to our full tips for Gather Round, of course. My tips are the Crows to beat Carlton, the Dockers to beat Collingwood, Brisbane to beat North Melbourne, Melbourne to beat Essendon, the Swans to beat the Gold Coast Suns, the Dogs to beat Hawthorn, Geelong to beat West Coast, GWS to beat Richmond, and then Port Adelaide to beat St Kilda. Now, my certainty tip for this week is the Crows to beat Carlton. Of course, Adelaide losing to Fremantle last week. And my brother's full tips for Gather Round are the Crows to beat Carlton, the Dockers to beat Collingwood, Brisbane to beat North Melbourne, Melbourne to beat Essendon, the Swans to beat the Gold Coast Suns, the Dogs to beat the Hawks, Geelong to beat West Coast, GWS to beat the Tigers, and then St Kilda to beat Port Adelaide. Now, my brother's certainty tip for this week is Geelong to beat the West Coast Eagles. Of course, Geelong losing to Hawthorn last week. But guys, that's pretty much all we have for you for the preview to Gather Round. Of course, some huge games coming up. I think they have kind of mucked up the fixtures for this week's Gather Round, but they are expecting a big announcement sometime this week that SA will continue to hold Gather Round, so I'm super excited for that as a South Australian. Up next, let's get to a bit of AFL fantasy chat, of course, and over the weekend, there's a bit of carnage. There's a bit more carnage to deal with. So, Ed Richards was one big one on the injury front. I didn't have him, thank God. But everyone had Tim English.
Yeah.
So, I had to deal with that issue. Everyone had to deal with, I think most people had to deal with Tim English, probably. And now that it's hasn't been confirmed how long he's going to be out, but when you hear an MCL, you're not really expecting a 1 weeker.
No, it's a month minimum,
Yeah,
say.
I'd say. I think I've heard 3 to 6 at the moment, but it's definitely a trade at this point.
Yeah, you'd have to.
Yeah. So first of all, let's talk about the team from last week. Now, I got 1,526, which was ranked at 67,386. Not good. And there were some players that I want to call out. Now, Josh Dacos with a 78. Just because your brother's not there, bro, you can fucking lift your game. All right, that was poor from you. Do better. Nick Dacos, of course, with a late withdrawal. Fuck me. Couldn't this have been last week when I traded him in? The week before? No. Oh, sorry, bro. I'm not playing today. Zach Butters against who they play again? Richmond, bro. What 84?
He got 30 touches in the game.
Fucking do some tackles, do some mark. Christ. Sam Walsh only got 78. That's poor from him. Jagger Smith, you did say maybe he played a little bit half forward. So 57, not ideal. Tim English, of course, with the 51 as captain, as a lot of people were like, Essendon, this is the spot. Bit of interesting one, though. A lot of people have brought out the fact that Blackiston is kind of a blocker for scores.
He's basically, he's actually, they call him the blanket.
Yeah.
Because every ruckman doesn't score well against him.
Yeah.
And this week they play Melbourne, which will be, I think, will be the understanding of if it actually is true, because I think it is.
If he can stop Max Gawn from getting a good score, then maybe
you avoid playing Essendon as a ruckman.
Yeah. Harry Shees with the 81, lowest score for him for the year, not ideal as well. And that's pretty much it, really. And then probably the worst thing for me, really, was my bench, because there were some good scores on there. Jai Sarong didn't even have him as an emergency. I would have brought him in if that was the case, but I didn't. He got 105. I mean, good on him as a Swans fan. I was happy. He's really thrived as a Swan, but fuck me. And then Lockie McAndrew. So also as well, because Tim English played 53% of the game, you get his score as a captain.
And what would have happened is that I would have got my vice captain score, and I would have won this week in all my leagues. I
would have won as well if I got Lockie McAndrew's score, but no. Of course, he played 53%. Like, fucking hell, Tim, could you fucking hurt your knee 3 minutes earlier? You would have fucking got me the game. Now, there were a couple of good players from my weekend. Archie Roberts, brilliant performance from him. Best performance of the year, 136.
Finally decided to show the preseason form.
Love that. Caleb Sarong, 124. After a slow start to the game, really came on. He did brilliantly. Tanner Braun with the 89, I'll take that. Luke Jackson, after a couple of down weeks with the 97, that's pretty okay, I guess. Josh Rochelle with the 88, Connor Butterick with the 83. That's kind of it, really. Like two of my better scores. Like I had Caleb Sarong and Archie Roberts in my team, and then after that, the two best scores in my team were my reserves.
Yeah.
And the player that I had to get on my bench was Jack Watkins. He decided to scratch his ass and get 21. Fucking anyway. So that's my team this week. What did you get last week?
So last week I got 1,515.
So you actually lost to me.
I actually got less than you.
That's embarrassing.
So I had on my who's some bad ones that weren't the same ones as you. Braden Cook only got 56. Blamire's got 55. Obviously, I had English as captain, which also hurt. Laylaw, another 60 scores again. Bolton, he had some good games. I brought him in. I should have brought him in if he read. I had him at the start of the week, but now I was going to go, now let's get some people that have, shown it in past years. He got 66, Shea Bolton. Let's just look at some positives, though.
Get away from the negatives.
Yeah, the negatives are horrible. Jaden Short scored well, 98. Houston went back to back to his early season form again. McKercher backing it up again at 84.
After getting smacked in the stomach by Alistair Clarkson.
Yeah.
He said, mate, I got you in my fucking team this week.
He actually started well, and then he basically, in that last quarter, he didn't do anything. Yeah. That was the
probably when North Melbourne. The problem was North Melbourne had to keep on, scoring. So he was like, "Let's not give it to the halfbacks. Let's just get this ball forward."
But the one player you have to give the credit to, which was the ex-captain of St Kilda, Jack Steele again, absolutely shows every bloody person in the AFL that he can play. And in that
stupid decision of St Kilda to let him go, I think.
Yeah, and I had the Lockie McAndrew score on the bench, and same with you. I couldn't get him in my team again because.
Did you have Josh Sarong?
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, I had Josh Sarong in my team actually. That was another good positive.
And you still scored less than me.
Yeah, I know.
How the hell did that happen? Anyway, so let's move to this week. So we'll move to our trades now. I've made the big decision to get rid of Tim English and go with Lockie McAndrew in my team, which means that I've picked up Mitch Edwards, which is the Geelong #1 ruck at the moment. My other trade at the moment is Phillippo out and Cozzy Pickett in. I wish I could do this next week because we're going to get a bunch of positional changes, And I feel like there could be a couple of midfielders that get forward status. However, at the moment, I think that I just have to get rid of Filippo. I was thinking of maybe getting rid of one of the defenders and getting in someone there like a Dan Houston, maybe Caleb Windsor for him. But I just think at the moment, Windsor has got more of a chance to score than Filippo. So that's why I've made that decision now.
Wait, you don't have Houston?
No. So I've tried to get in Houston, but I got Jaden Shaw instead when I had the chance. And I mean, I picked Archie Roberts as well. That's probably the one I would have had Dan Houston. But Roberts has done okay the last couple of weeks. So I'm okay with that. The other forward I was considering is maybe Brian Myers, who still got to 80 last week despite playing a little bit poorly. At the moment, I'm happy with Cozzy Pickett. I think against Essendon this week, he can play really well. And I don't really see the Bombers having an answer for him. So that's kind of where I'm leaning at right now. So because of that trade, I've got 645 remaining in my salary. So that means that next week I can make a really big change, probably to defence. We'll see how Caleb Windsor goes, but he's probably the one on the chopping block at the moment. And then he's probably going to go for either Dan Houston, but if I can go higher, I'll probably go higher, maybe Jack Sinclair or Lockie Ash. But I may just go with Dan Houston at the moment just to keep some cash and then use it on one of the rookies. And then probably from this point now until the buys, I'm probably going to, I think as most people will start doing, is rotating out cashed out rookies and picking up, getting that premium player from the team into it at the moment. And one that I want to try and... probably the rookies that I want to try and get rid of first are Blackiston, Lombard, and probably a Watkins as well. Like, Sarong's probably scoring okay. Lindsay's going up a bit as well. The West Coast player, Murdoch, I think he could come back this week.
He's 1 week away. So he won't play gather round, but they're on the injury list, which they say he's about a week off.
That's good then. So at the moment as well, just before we move to your trades, my captain this week at the moment is Harry Sheasel against the Brisbane Lions. I think I'll keep with that. And my vice captain is Caleb Sarong up against Collingwood because he has a very good record against the Pies.
And they won't tag.
And I don't see them tagging.
Perryman may go to him.
That's what I kind of thought. That's what I said in the tips this week. But that's kind of where I'm sitting at the moment. So what are your trades looking like?
So far this week, which could change depending on how Thursday night goes, which I'll get into in a minute. So obviously I got rid of Tim English and I brought in Brodie Grundy. I was very short on trying to get Gawn, which I would have loved to get, and if I could, I would have just left it at that. And then I got rid of Ty Gallop and I got Jai Farah. I think he's the guy. He just come off 100 against for Essendon this week, and he's the person who's going to generate cash at the moment.
Yeah, so I think, Jacob Farrow had a really good game for the Bombers last week. Had a lot of mark kicks. It uses that left foot, so they try to get through him as a lot as it happens. But it also, because he's just gone for price, that's what you probably need to go to. That's one I was thinking as well. But I just thought with the cash that I've got this week, I think that's probably the move. And that's probably, I may go and get Farrow next week if I can afford it on one of my big players, like a Watkins type, because he's probably going to generate more cash. That's probably where I'm looking to, but I think that's probably two good moves.
And then, obviously, that means, because I've got Grundy, I do have McAndrew on my bench, but if McAndrew scores another big score again, 90, I want at least 95 plus, I'll change that of Grundy and get Mitch Edwards from Geelong and get all that cash in and play McAndrew on the field. I think...
Wait, you can't move him on the field, though?
Yeah, I can.
If you play it.
Yeah, McAndrew, but I can get rid of... I can leave him on my emergency list, change that all up, because Bulldogs or Sydney haven't played yet.
Yeah, but you can't... If you pick up Mitch Edwards, if he plays and you get Mitch Edwards...
Yeah, or I can get... Or
you'd have to get
rid of a rookie player that won't play. That it could be, even someone like...
I think the Brisbane Ruckman who played a couple of games.
Yeah, that Zelensky or somebody like that, or, or... one of the Bulldogs ruckman for English, the other one that doesn't play, which may come in the week after. So one of those players or something like that will come in. And at the moment, on the chopping block in the next couple of weeks is going to be Sam Lawler. Yeah. He's not getting any more price. He's only going to go up a few more K now. He's going to averaging 60s.
You've kept Christian Petrarca, haven't you?
Yeah, yes, I do have Christian Petrarca. And they think he's 1 to 2 weeks away. He could play half the gather round or the week after that. So I'm happy with that.
He's probably someone I'll bring straight back in when he's ready to go.
Yeah, so to be honest, I'm not too bad if McAndrew does score well this week because I do have backup plan for it. But and I'll have so much cash to get a primo midfielder because I have Sheasel in my midfield. So it's not a big deal. But at the moment, my team's looking pretty good. I've got a fair amount of players on still making cash. Jack Carroll, Leo Lombard, and Sammy Laylor are the players I'm looking to get rid of in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
To hopefully get some more cash. And this week I've went with Jack Steele. Going to go VC against Essendon. I think should play well against basically Witches Cones besides Zach Merritt. And the captaincy I put on Jack Sinclair against Port Adelaide. I think the way Port Adelaide are playing, they won't tag him. They'll go Nasai if they're going to go anybody.
Yeah.
Or they won't do it at all because, let's be honest, they want to... I think it's a big recruiting pitch for Port Adelaide this week.
Nasai, bring you back.
Yep.
They couldn't get it last time. They're like, Nasai, we're lower on the ladder now. You want to come over? Yeah. We're doing as bad as you guys. So what a recruiting drive.
Yeah, but Sinclair's playing really well at the moment. I think he's averaging 115 and, there's no likelihood of him getting tagged in most games with Nasai playing so well at the moment.
Yeah, I can't see a way where he gets watched this week. Now, before we end today's episode, we won't go to World Sport this week. We'll go to Rate It or Hate It. We'll bring it back to the last part of the episode. So, Rate It or Hate It, of course, one of the fan favourite segments. Like we told you last week, Andrew Dillon came over a little bit early just to thank us for the segment. This week, he even came over just before the podcast, actually. We're going to have him on, but he said, no, I can't be on, boys. And we're like, that's all good. But just let us know how much you love Rate It or Hate It. And he said, it's better than any of the segments on any other big TV show. Said, can't deal with Caro's Arrow, whatever the fuck that was, and whatever, good call, bad call for Footy Classified. He's like, that's old news. Who cares? It's all about Rate It or Hate It. So this is his favourite segment now, which we do really appreciate of Andrew Dillon to come out. And I fully support his views. So first of all, Fremantle, are they the real deal?
I hate it.
You hate it?
Yeah. I just don't know. They don't seem to... they haven't been... they last a couple of weeks ago when they played Richmond, they kicked 25 behinds. They should have won by 120 plus against Richmond at home. Last week against the Crows, they gave up 7 goals in a row and the Crows hit the front. Yes, they had the resilience of winning that game, but they should have never been in that position. And
the good teams will
put you away. The good teams will put you away and not give you a sniff. And the Freo haven't done that. This game this week against Freo against Collingwood very interesting because they've always recently the last 2 or 3, 4 years they've played very close games against each other. This is on neutral ground. Collingwood actually played very well here in Adelaide, and Freo haven't had always had a very weird record in Adelaide, and I don't really understand why did they go back home before at the end of last week to go back home and then come back here again. But I don't trust them. I just don't trust them yet. I don't think Jai Amos is showing it week to week. They're relying a lot on Tracy,
who, by the way, is in insane form.
Insane form. And do they have... I've seen it a few times this year that it's not all on Sarong, but who's the next one that's actually going to take the mantle? Is it going to be Brayshaw doing it every week, or is it going to be Shea Bolton needs to show his All-Australian form?
They do desperately need Hayden Young to stay on the field.
Yeah, and Hayden Young has to stay on the field, and that's why I don't trust them.
I will say that we have seen a couple of emerging players this year, and Murphy Reed's after Rising Star. Some players can hit those second-year blues. He has just gone to a whole other level.
Oh, that game on Friday night, it's probably the first game really I've actually watched all season against the Crows, and Murphy Reed's second-year blues isn't going to happen. He's playing brilliant.
He is honestly one of the... I mean, as a second-year player, to be as clean as he is, just doesn't fumble.
No,
always grabs the ball. How did this guy slide to 16 in the draft?
Yeah.
We talk about these draft players or whatever, and the draft is a little bit of a lottery. This guy slid to 16th.
Yeah, and he's a player that has come out publicly and said basically he's put his loyalty in Freo because they took a chance, and fuck that they're gonna that's gonna pay dividends.
Yeah,
and I think it will give him the chance to win a premiership with him in that.
He's not the quickest, he's not the biggest, he's not the bullocking midfielder, but he's as clean as you want, and he's such a smart user. Like we saw last year in his first season, The reason why he won the Rising Star is because he's such a good user and he always gets his team in better positions.
Yeah, and people don't like bringing this up, but it's very true that time just stops. And there's only one player who could really say that ever to be the case, and that's the player that's about to break the record of the most games played, and Scott Pendlebury.
Yeah,
And
even Marcus Bontempelli has those sort of moments. Like
Yeah.
when you have those, there's very few players that like the game slows down around
yeah,
them.
and on Friday night, you just watching it, it's like there's no way this kid's just slid to 16th in the draft.
Yeah.
How?
Like
Has
16th
it-
isn't even that bad, but like it's like this guy could have gone top 5.
and he looks like he will be. Yeah, by the end of his career, they'll go back to this draft, and he'll be in the top 3.
Yeah, he's a brilliant player, and he's someone who's really emerged this year, and it's something that's brought them to a new level for my eyes. Josh Tracy has been brilliant. Shea Bolton before last week against the Crows has had a really good start to the campaign.
But
Caleb Sarong.
The thing about Bolton is that he had his moments in the last quarter when normally, if it's not his game, he just not drifts away, but he just doesn't care. But
feels like he just doesn't want to.
He doesn't want to be that player to do it. So he's like,
For so long he's been that player that you just know you can win a game off your own boot, Shy, if you just get the ball and get it in your hands, and it just feels like he's not willing to push for it.
Yeah, but
it looks like this year, the want is back. I
Yeah,
think he had that at times when he was at the Tigers, but first year at Fremantle, it kind of felt like he was going through the motions a lot. I think this year he's definitely shown some good signs, and I do see like Alex Pearce. Like I know it was only one smother, but what a smother it was!
And
I
he
think he's
does
one
it-
of the best leaders in the game.
and he does it at Adelaide Oval.
Yeah.
That's the one place he's doing it.
Yeah.
Because he did it last year against us, so you want to keep the goal.
Yeah, exactly. He's just
But,
a match
yeah,
winner. Still remember last year when you said he was pretty shit too. Still always remember that.
He will, he's just proven me wrong.
Yeah.
You just need that little,
But you
push.
Yeah, but you still hate it. You still think you don't trust him yet.
No, not Freo, not yet. I haven't seen them do it, and I think that they're a team that if they don't finish in the top 2, they're going to struggle because they'll have to do it the hard way because they need 2 home finals at in Perth.
Yeah. Next question: Gather rounds should be extended in an SA for 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
I think it has to be. We basically said at the start, where else would it thrive? Really, it's in the perfect spot in Australia, and it's a footy love state.
Yeah. I think when you think about states of like that could host it, like New South Wales and Brisbane, maybe the location is good, but they're not football states.
No,
And what about like let's say you moved it to Brisbane for 5 years, one of those teams goes off. Like I'm not expecting either of them to, but let's say one of them did. We saw how we know the crowd numbers just dwindle in those for those teams when they're not playing well. And same with like New South Wales, like the Swans are thriving at the moment, and they're always like basically when Buddy Franklin joined and ever since then, they've had good crowd numbers for a long time. But the Giants still struggle to, even get half capacity at NG Stadium at some games.
Yeah.
So, if they can't even fill up their own ground, how are they going to, get people to come over to New South Wales and go fill up those games? Because, yes, they'll get Collingwoods and, whatever, those sort of teams will get big crowds at those games. But, like, even at most gather rounds in SA, like, most games, like, even down in at Norwood or the Barossa or, when we were playing down in Mount Barker, those games, just those ones, were packed. And then the ones at Adelaide Oval, like the marquee games, were also, like, massive.
Yeah.
And even though this year they're trying to push for this Essendon Melbourne game to the fucking cleaners, it's like every single ad I see on my phone is saying they're only $15 for tickets, they're only 25. It's like, bro, this is why you should have played this one at the fucking Barossa. But anyway, those sort of states I don't think can do it. Victoria, you already get that every second week you already get it every week with a fucking gather round. You're not getting it. Tasmania, maybe when they get the new stadium, you could maybe make a case for them. But I think the state and the population is just too small.
Yeah.
Maybe they could have like
there's
a
not
month
much
once.
infrastructure besides like to host such a big gathering of people come down in a way. I don't think, but when they have the big stadium, it might help. But they will get. I will say this: when they get that stadium and all that, they will get 1 or 2. They will explore it then down there.
In WA, I mean, maybe if they were to get the 20th team, maybe that'd be the idea, like we talked about a minute ago. But I just think the population's too spaced out, and like the one thing that SA has is that everything's pretty close together. Everything's like within an hour's distance at the most. Like even the game at the Barossa is probably about an hour away, and it's just I just think SA is the perfect location. And the thing is, it's been there from the start. They grew it. Well, we've grown it. We are biased, of course, when we're talking about this because it makes it a lot easier for us to just have to travel down the road than having to travel to a different state to go watch a whole bunch of games.
Yeah.
But I honestly think, 10 to 20. I think it should be the home of the gather round for the foreseeable future. And finally, Carlton need a fresh voice.
Yeah, love it. But how many more fresh voices do they need? They've had so many in the last 15 years.
Well, okay, let's put it this way. Who's the coach that Carlton need to go to, to get back somewhat? Because, I mean, let's be honest. They've had lists like they had the 2 best key forwards in the game. They had a Brownlow medalist. They had an All-Australian key defender. And their best finish in the last 10 years is a prelim final, which they, yes, they played well in for a half, but they did finish at the bottom. They finished at 5th or 6th that year. So they haven't even finished in top 4. And they last made finals as well before that. I think it was in the early 2010s.
Yeah.
So I think the coach has always been a bit of an issue for them. They haven't been able to find that coach to take them to the next step. The list really has. I mean, they've had some list blunders in the past, like Josh Bootsma. I always remember what a signing he was, and they missed out on a couple of others. But they've still made some pretty good decisions. To have 2 Coleman medalists on your list that you drafted, that's a pretty big get. Bringing in Paddy Cripps, who's the coach has been the issue, I think.
Yeah, I think whoever the coach has been, they haven't been able to quickly change their game style into what it is these days.
Yeah, they've to change with the times.
Yeah, Michael Voss is playing in the 90s. He's playing when he's coaching a team that is, playing game style when he was a player. The game's changed in 20 years. Since you were in your dynasty at Brisbane, the game's changed 100%. Even 180. It's completely different now. And even when they were winning, they got to the prelim. That's when it started to change, and he just didn't want to change his game style. And I think there's a lot more than just the coach, though. I think their whole coaching department's just not there. When you've got the role, you had the 2 big forwards, you had your Paddy Cripps, you had basically the spine. How do you not do something?
The fact that they went from the top 4 to 8th and scrape into finals in 2024, basically making up the numbers to missing finals completely in 2025, and now one of the worst 4 teams in the competition, I'd probably say. They'd be around that mark. They've dropped right off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
And it just, I understand that it is probably the whole coaching department, but the main issue that keeps on arising for me has been the coach. We go back to Brett Ratton. They moved to Mick Malthouse.
Yeah.
That didn't work. They then went to an unexperienced coach in Brendan Bolton. That didn't work. Then they moved to an assistant coach that did a couple of good games before as an interim coach and then got taken over, and then it was David Teague. He didn't last very long. He lasted a couple of years, and then they moved to Michael Voss. It seems like that's the issue, though, in my eyes. The big issue is the head coach. They haven't got a guy who's going to lead them. Now, I personally think the main guy they should be striving for is Ken Hinkley.
That's who I was going to say as well.
I think they should, because I think the Ken Hinkley, yes, he didn't get his team to a grand final for Port Adelaide, but the one thing he did do was he got everyone to love him. Every single player at Port Adelaide loved Ken Hinkley.
And still does.
And still does. We saw him at the game last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, when everyone was standing around him and they were in awe of him. Even players that weren't even on the list when he was there, like Jack Watkins, was sitting there talking to him, listening to him. He brings the club together. He brings players together. You play for him,
and he still knows the game. Even just listening to him on commentary, he knows the game.
Yeah,
he knows how the game should be played these days. And yes, he didn't really have the 15, 20 stars like the Dogs do at Port Adelaide, but he had people on his back that will play for him.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
what
probably one thing that many people would say about Port Adelaide is they always used to fight above their weight. Even in the years when they made the finals, they never really had the best list, but they always used to fight and play for him. And I bet a lot of Port Adelaide fans are saying right now, do you want to come back, Ken? Please? But I understand why they chose Josh Carr in the end. But I think that he should be their number 1 target going into, because let's be honest, if Michael Voss survives to the bye, I'd be shocked. I think he will be. I can't see a way where he can survive all the way to the bye without getting the sack. Just they can't keep on having results like that. Like if that result happened around the bye with North Melbourne last week, surely he would have been gone.
Yeah.
So
And I think the big talking point about it is that North Melbourne would have been a laughing stock in that game, the Good Friday game since it started. It was not the fact if North Melbourne were playing well the entire game, and it was very close, it was one-sided. It would be a different story. To have a 20-plus point lead with like 10 minutes left and cough it up,
yeah.
you can't
Against
do
a
that.
team like North Melbourne, who would have felt a lot of pressure as well. Like it wasn't like North Melbourne were like, oh, okay, we can fight back from this. They would have had so much pressure on them because if they did lose, they would have lost another Good Friday game, and everyone would be saying that they shouldn't get that game, that they don't deserve that prime time slot. But yes, Carlton had this more pressure, but they still had a team on the ropes, and they didn't put them away.
Yeah.
All they had to do was kick another goal, and they would have won it. Stop North Melbourne from scoring for 5 minutes, they would have won it. But they couldn't do it. So, yeah, I mean, I personally think that their next coach has to be a experienced one.
Yeah.
And I think that Ken Hinkley should be the number one target for them. You've got obviously others, and Adam Simpson is currently in the coach's mentoring role with Michael Voss. I still don't really think that's the option. I think that they should go outside just completely clear of Carlton and pick someone that's not there. Even if Adam Simpson wants to go back into coaching, I don't think he's the guy.
No.
Anyway, guys, that's pretty much all we have for you for this episode of the podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy it, make sure to leave us a like and subscribe over on YouTube. And if you are over on Spotify, make sure to leave us 5 stars. And make sure to click, I don't know what the bell is. I think if you follow, that's how you get notified for podcasts every single week. Now, you'd think I'd remember that after 150 odd episodes, but I can't even remember the episode number. So, such a professional here. Anyway, guys, hopefully you guys have a good gather round. If you are here in SA, make sure to use that petrol discount if you remember it and go to the right places. Make sure to have a safe weekend. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you all next week.
See you later, guys.